Well, another day and another free air rifle. I'm very, very lucky again. This was donated to me by the same chap who gave me the Crossman 761XL and the Markham King, which are now both finished. And happened to run into him again today, and he said, "Oh, found this in the garage, thought you might like it." And he came up with this. Now, as you can see, this is in a pretty poor state. This is not the actual barrel, this is the barrel outer sleeve. It's very, very badly rusted, so we're going to have to do some work on that, and there's quite a lot of spotty rust on here. I'm hoping that certainly that this part here I can save just using wire wool and oil. The stock's in very, very good condition, just needs a sand down and refinish. So what is it? Well, it is a Diana Model 1 of all air rifles. Now, it was probably made almost certainly post-war because it's got made in Great Britain on it, and the Diana name was taken over by Milbro up in Scotland after the Second World War. So this is definitely a post-war gun. But it could, it could still be late 1940s, early 1950s vintage. So, yeah, I'm very, very pleased to have this. And this is exactly what it looked like when I saw it. Now, obviously, it's missing a few parts, but the important stuff is all there. I don't know how well you can see that, but you can clearly see the Diana Goddess and the Diana Model 1 made in Great Britain on the top there at the end of the barrel, breech end of the barrel. Now, the Diana Model 1s are a little bit unusual in the fact that they were much more like a Daisy than a conventional air rifle. So they actually have a shot tube, and unfortunately this one is intact, so we'll just take that out. So yeah, there you go, shot tube. And basically you put your pellet in the end here, and then you put it back in to load it. So, well, this is effectively, this is the barrel. So I'm well pleased to actually have that part. So I have already done a strip down. They're extremely simple guns. There you can see basically the insides. You've got the spring and the piston, the plunger. There's a shroud that goes round the inside of the rear end of the barrel here, and you've got the pull wire which pulls the spring when you break it. It's a brake action, so it literally breaks like that. The spring is in very good condition actually, and so is the seal. I'm just quite impressed, so I don't really think I'm going to need to do anything to change those. So what's actually missing? Well, the trigger assembly is the main thing. Obviously the trigger assembly is missing, and that's something that I'm hoping I can source. The trigger retaining bolt and the spring puller retaining bolt are also missing, and so is the trigger guard and the rear sight, but I can manufacture those. So, first stage cleanup. The masking tape in the plastic bag is just there to protect the wooden stock, so I don't really want to get any 3-in-1 oil and that on it. So what I'm going to do is I've got some fine fine steel wool and some coarse steel wool. We're going to start on the bad part of the gun with the coarse steel wool and plenty of oil. And just a bit of elbow grease, and we'll work away at it and see what it's like. And it's pretty badly rusted, so I'm not holding out too much hope, but you never can tell until you try. It's worth giving it a go. On lightly rusted barrels, I've had a lot of success using this method, which takes the rust off but generally leaves the bluing intact. So right, let me get a paper towel and we'll clean that off. There we go. And you can see already that a huge amount of the rust has actually come off. And that was just the first going over. If we tip it over and have a look at the other side, you can still see that there's, you know, there's here. Let's come back out again. Ooh, it's the wrong way. Yeah, here there's still quite a lot of rust on it and on the top as well. But I'm gonna keep working away at that and come back when I've hopefully got rid of it all. Well, hopefully you can see that we've had a vast improvement just with a bit of wire wool and some oil. You can now quite clearly see the Diana made in England. Sorry, made in Britain. GT, Great Britain, on the receiver there. And as I suspected, the receiver really wasn't bad at all. Just really surface rust. And the wire wool has taken that all off very nicely. Now the barrel shroud obviously was a lot worse, and there's some quite deep pitting on there. The rust has gone, but obviously it was really, really bad. So I've got to make a decision about what I'm going to do with that. Whether I'm going to re-blue it or just leave it. I haven't really made my mind up yet. There particularly, it obviously the rust really got to it quite badly. So but I'm very pleased with what we've achieved so far, just with the wire wool. So obviously the next job is to sand the stock down, which I will use the detail sander on. We'll put some masking tape around the metal parts to protect that, and then we'll just sand that down and be finishing oil and get that looking like new. Well, the Diana Model 1 stock has been sanded down and it's all ready for its first coat of finishing oil. And I think it's going to look really, really nice when it's done. Well, the stock is finished and it's turned out really nice. I didn't put anywhere near as many coats of finishing oil on this as I did on the Finework Barrel 300S stock. I didn't really need it. This was, some would react differently to the finishing oil, and this seemed to, it didn't need anywhere near as many coats, and it's just come out lovely. It's really nice. I'll flip it over so you can see the other side. But now obviously, you know, you can't get rid of big holes like that. You'd have to sand, make the thing way too thin to get rid of that, and there's dings like that. But you know, the rest of it, no, it's come out really well. I'm well pleased with that. So I think it looks quite nice overall. Now, as you can see, it's not completely back together yet. I'm waiting for a new spring to come for it, but all the parts are made. I made the executive decision not to do anything with the barrel other than clean the rust off. I've left it because I quite like that old appearance. Yeah, this is really nice. This didn't really need anything doing to it. That could do with re-bluing, but then it wouldn't look right with this. And I just decided to leave it alone. So we're going to leave it like that. So all it needs is the new spring, and once that's here, I can put it back together and the thing will be done. And yeah, it's going to be a nice little rifle. On one of my recent air rifle videos, I think it was the one I did on the LGR, my boy asked a very pertinent question, or made a request. As he said, it would be nice to know how the internals of these rifles work. So I thought that as I've got the Diana Model 1 stripped right down, I'd try and explain how it actually works. And obviously this is a very simple spring-powered rifle, and the pneumatic ones are more complex, but this is a good point to start. So I'm going to go through it and hopefully try and explain to you exactly what's going on. Okay, so this is the piston and the piston rod. Now normally this rod would be inside this spring, and all of that would be inside here. This is the compression tube. This is where the air is compressed. This rod is inside the spring. It's not at the moment because I've taken it off because I intend to put a new spring on. Then, so this rod's inside this spring. Then what happens is, so this sleeve fits in this part of the rifle here, and it's locked in place with the trigger bolt, which goes through there, and it also sits right there. So it basically, this cannot move back. The spring butts up against the end of this sleeve here. So when the gun is cocked, basically the pull wire here draws this rod back like that, compressing that spring, okay? Move the rifle out of the way, until it gets to the point where the sear and the trigger engages with the hook on the end of that rod, and the spring is then compressed down to that much, and that's what gives it the power. When you release the trigger, obviously this will fly forward under spring pressure, compressing the air in this tube, and that's what fires the pellet. So hopefully that's I will explain it. So basically, normally this rod would be inside that spring like that, and then all of that sits there like that. This sits there, and the pull wire will protrude through the gun at this end here, and is held captive with the bolt that goes through that hole in the rifle right there. So when you do this, you'll pull in the pull wire all the way back to here. So that will be there. So you're pulling it over that distance, and that pulls the rod, which is there, that pulls the rod back to about there, and that's when the trigger sear engages with that hook on the rod. And that's basically how it works. So hopefully that's explained it a little bit rather than just made it even more complicated. Well, the new spring finally arrived for the Diana Model 1, and I've got it installed on the, well, call it the piston rod for want of a better term, and now it's all ready to go back together, which hopefully will not be too much of a problem. So let's give it a go. So you get this inserted, and that can be a bit tricky. It's a new leather seal, so it's a bit tight. Now you've got to push this. This has got to go in a lot further than that, and the hook must be facing downwards so that the sear can catch. But before we push it in any further, we've got to hook on the pull wire, which goes literally under there like that, and then we can push it in all the way, basically, which I will need something to push it with because it's going to disappear into the guts of the rifle. So we got it that far. Now we have to put this in, which goes in over the top of the pull wire. Okay, I've got to get it up in that slot. But, yeah, so this has got to go over that. Basically, this is quite fiddly, this bit. Like that. And that goes in there like that. Pull those out of there. Yes, as I said, this is a bit fiddly. But yeah, that goes in there like that. And get it lined up, and tap it on down, and we should be good to go. Well, here's the Daisy Model 1 all back together, and what a fight that was. I think it was just the fact that the new spring is much stronger than the old spring, and you do have to compress the spring ever so slightly to get the trigger and spring retaining screw in place. And whereas that was fairly easy with the old spring, it was not easy with the new spring. I had to make up basically a tool which would allow me to just compress the spring a little bit so that I could get the screw in. But it's all back together, and it's a vast improvement. Before, the old spring was so weak that it would fire BBs, but it almost never fired. If you put a pellet in it, it wouldn't fire the pellet. It just didn't have enough puff to do that. Now it fires pellets absolutely no problem. And not only that, whereas before the accuracy was all over the place, now I'm getting, well, not marksmanship, shall we say, accuracy, but there you go. That was my test target. Let's zoom in on that so you can see what was going on. I always start off with a sheet of A4 and a red or black dot in the middle when I'm just setting up a rifle for the first time, or a pistol, because I don't know where it's going to shoot at all and you need some indication. Well, when I first tried the Dyna Model 1 with the original spring, it was all over the place, literally all over. But now I'm getting this kind of spread, which, to be honest with you, I'm perfectly happy with that. That'll allow you to knock down tin cans. That's not that bad at all. It's still a bit of a spread, but no, for a very old, very basic junior spring powder gun, no, I'm not unhappy with that. And as I said, now it will shoot pellets without any problem at all, which it wouldn't do before. So that about wraps it up for the lovely Dyna Model 1. I really like this rifle. Don't ask me why. Maybe because it's got the rather unusual mechanism in it. Actually, no, I haven't shown that, have I? Since I've done it, I'll cock the gun so you can see what's going on. So as I said, it's a break barrel air rifle, so it just breaks like that. But it's unusual in the fact that what's happening here is those two wires that you can see in there are pulling the rod, which is inside the spring, back to compress it, and then it latches on the trigger sear. So let's see if I can do this in front of the camera without right, now the trigger is caught on the sear and it's ready to fire, basically. A lot more bang now than it had before. Yes, so I'm well pleased with this, and as I've said before in the video, this was donated to me for free. I didn't pay anything for it, and very grateful to my friend Ashley who donated this gun, and it's now in my collection. And another thing about these early Dianas is that you got to remember that for many young boys, this would have been their first air rifle. You know, I certainly had a Diana. It wasn't this. I think it was a Model 16, but it was again very similar to this. So they're an interesting thing in the historical perspective of air rifles, because many young lads would have had these as their first air rifle. So yeah, well pleased to have this in my collection. Anyway, that's about it for the Dyna Model 1. As always, hope you've enjoyed the video, and thanks very much for watching. Cheers.